All right, y'all, we are back with the Stacks. I am your host, Tracy Thomas. This week, I am joined by our guest, Aaron Dolores. He is the founder of Black Arrow FC, and we are talking about Franklin Foer's book, How Soccer Explains the World. Before we get to that, I've got my little housekeeping for you. Subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcast. Rate and review this show. If you're listening through Apple Podcasts, we really appreciate the ratings and the reviews. They help us get the word out to other listeners and help us reach new audiences. It's very easy. It takes like 5 seconds. I don't know, maybe a minute. I hope that you can spare that time for us. Our most recent review is from GA Boy 1125. He says, I love this podcast. It is incredibly informative and keeps me in the know about books that I should be reading. Tracy is hilarious, smart, and witty with a tad bit of shade, which is true. This makes for perfect listening. Keep up the good work. We'll be here every week listening to you and your guests. Thank you, GA Boy 1125. We appreciate you taking the time to make a review. The rest of you, if you've yet to do that, please, 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 we'd really appreciate it. The other thing we appreciate is those of you who are able to join our Patreon community. We're calling you our Stacks Pack. Patreon is an easy way for you to contribute to this show. You help us keep the lights on. You help us keep the website up. You help us be able to do new and exciting content. In exchange, you get exclusive perks. You get social media shout outs. You get access to our guests. You get to help us pick books that we might cover on the show later. And you get what I'm about to do, our Stacks Pack shout out for the week. These are people who have contributed to our show on a certain level, and they get their name read. So here it is: Brady Thomas, Susan Shane, Sue Thomas, Roberta Achtenberg, and Sarah Fong. We thank you so much for joining the Stacks Pack. And the rest of you, if you're not part of the Stacks Pack yet, get on it. www.patreon.com/thestacks. You can also find a link to that in the show notes. Thank you for supporting this show. It means a lot, and I really, really, really appreciate it. So thank you. Now, this week, Aaron and I are discussing Franklin Foer's book, How Soccer Explains the World. We're looking at socio-political, economic events, shifts, cultural moments, and how they affect soccer and how soccer in turn affects those things. We're also diving deep into the racism that is found in the soccer community, especially in Europe. There are no spoilers this week because our conversation more focuses on contextualizing soccer in culture and culture in soccer. So if you've not read the book yet, don't worry, you can listen. It's the World Cup. Maybe you want to learn a little bit about some of the players you're seeing. That's it from me right now. So go listen, enjoy the show. And of course, if you have any feedback, hit me up, Instagram, email. You can find me on any of our social media platforms. And I love engaging with y'all. So here it is, Aaron and I talking soccer. All right, y'all, I am back here again with Aaron Dolores, the creator, founder of Black Arrow FC. We're here today. We're doing our Stacks Book Club episode, and we're talking about the book, How Soccer Explains the World. It's written by Franklin Foer. He is a journalist based in D.C. The book was written in 2006. And the premise of the book is that it's a world tour of soccer, and it shines a light on the changing world economy, cultural clashes, and the way that soccer functions as a communal outlet for celebration and also for resistance. So Foer takes us across the globe. He's mostly focused in Europe. There is a little jaunt to the U.S. and a little jaunt to Brazil, but it's mostly, the main players in the soccer world. So Italy, England, Ireland, Scotland, Serbia, of course, a main player. Anyway, so Aaron, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
You're welcome. No. Just kidding. So just to dive in right away into this book, what are kind of your initial thoughts about this book?
Well, what I really love about this book is because it represents so much of what we look to do in our business with Black Arrow, which is connecting the sport with things that are happening off the field, other narratives, political stuff, cultural stuff, historical stuff. And I think more than any other sport, soccer is, especially outside of this country, so intertwined with that, this book really does a good job to people who aren't aware of how that functions in Europe and in Latin America and stuff. This book really helps explain that.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, the book was written in 2006, which was a World Cup year, like this year. As this episode is airing, we're actually in that second week, I think, of the World Cup. So, the rest of the world and maybe a few people that you might know in America are watching the World Cup. But it definitely feels like this book is trying to drive the point or the idea home that soccer is more than just a sporting event. And, I think that he does a great job of kind of trying to tie it in to the greater world picture. But I also, wonder a little bit if this book was written in 2006, like, in connection with FIFA, right? Like to be like, hey, let's get some Americans to talk about soccer.
Yeah, for sure. And he definitely...
He romanticizes a little.
He romanticizes it a lot. And I think he, plays off of a lot of the things that he knows people are going to respond to in order to create interest and intrigue in the sport.
Yeah.
This book is for people that are not, if you're into soccer, you're reading this book because you want to pat yourself on the back for soccer. And if you're not into soccer, I think that was his second, target of people that are into politics and race and religion and wanted to see how the two things are connected. Yeah,
totally. And I think, like, as you said, he kind of tries to pull on some of those points of interest for non-soccer people. And he starts the book right off with hooliganism. And for people who don't really know what that means, do you kind of want to give a general sense of like the soccer hooligan?
Yeah, sure. So most major teams and even now teams here in the United States have what they call supporter groups.
Okay.
Which is one thing that makes soccer very unique. In other sports in America here, you just have fans and kind of people get together. The supporter groups often have a structural and fundamental relationship with the team themselves, meaning that sometimes the team, gives them certain tickets. The supporter groups essentially are just, they call them ultras. They're just the diehard fans that support that team.
Right. So it's like the black hole at the Raider games, but on a much bigger scale and endorsed by the Raiders, essentially.
Yeah. And so you'll have like official and unofficial ones. You'll have supporter groups that used to be endorsed and they lose their endorsements and the team might try to shut them down. And so, and a lot of them operate as businesses as well.
Like you have to pay to be...
You have to pay to be in it, and they'll raise money. They'll raise money for the team to go buy players. They're, they hold a lot of power. Whether it's real or perceived is really dependent on the situation. And then, as is you would expect, the supporter groups from the teams often fight each other, beat each other up, and
from opposing teams. I did find the hooligan stuff pretty interesting, just as I was thinking about it and kind of framing it. I personally am a big sports fan, but I'm not a big soccer fan. I'll watch the World Cup and, if it's on, if it's a Premier League, whatever championship or something, I might catch a few minutes if I'm awake. But when I think about it, and I think about football, American football or basketball, the thought of, having these groups is, it's okay, it happens. Sometimes our microphones are noisy. I think about, these groups and like they're notorious also for violence. And, there have been people who've been severely injured. And I know like a few years back in baseball, there was a San Francisco Giants fan who got beat up by some Dodgers fans.
Yeah.
And it was like a huge, huge story in sports. And he got to like throw out an opening pitch and like the players went to visit him in the hospital. And I just think about like how commonplace this is in soccer. And I wonder, is this something that would be able to function and survive in American sports or in American soccer when we think about the fan base, right?
Yeah.
Or like a soccer team, like, is it FC Atlanta?
Atlanta United.
Oh, Atlanta United.
Yeah.
I know that they have like a large Black fan base. Like, are there large Black fan base hooligan groups, or are they treated differently?
The fan base in Atlanta is not predominantly Black. There are a lot of Black fans. Mm-hmm. One of their supporter groups is the Footy Mob, which is a playoff of the Goody Mob.
Right.
But
which is a music
pretty
reference.
Cool. Yeah. The most of the supporter groups in the United States, primarily what they do, and this isn't to like dog them at all, because some people in soccer will take this the wrong way, but they really try to embody the energy of supporter groups that you'll see in Latin America or Europe, and bring that vibe to the game. So they'll set off flares, and they have, really organized chants, and they bring out these big, tifos, which are just like these huge signs. And so they really, they're not as like crazy or insane. I think that in a country like the United States, like people are pretty, happy and comfortable. Whereas like a lot of the hooligans you're seeing in like Russia or England are, groups of working class people that are not, happy in life and feel mistreated in one way or another. Sure. Primarily, if you're a soccer fan in the United States, you're new to the sport. You have some money because you can go to the game and stuff like that. So they're.
But I mean, these games cost money in Europe too.
Yeah, no, they do. They do.
And I mean, from my understanding, and also he kind of talks about it in the book, in the last 20 years, since the 90s, especially in England, these games have become have moved more and more away from working class. And the people that are going to the games are more wealthy, and it's become a little bit more like, the San Francisco 49ers, where it's not even in San Francisco. It's like thousands of dollars to sit in the good seats. And so, I just wonder, what I'm really asking you basically, if I just going to be straight up, is do you think that Black people who are supporters of soccer have the same luxury to behave as the hooligans that are white?
Well,
or is it not that simple?
No, not at all. I mean, Black people don't have the same luxuries as white people in any capacity, especially in soccer. But I don't. In the United States, you don't really have many organized Black supporters, anyways.
Are there organized Black supporters in Europe?
You will have in Africa. You do, obviously, in Nigeria and Ghana, soccer is huge.
Right.
A lot of the Black supporters are in England, are part of other groups that don't necessarily
have like the hooligan aspect.
Yeah. Okay. But there's an interesting story. We did this video called "Why Black Folks Love Arsenal."
Right.
And we went into the history of Arsenal as a club, and they one of the first teams in England to sign a lot of the Black players, and so a lot of the Nigerians and Ghanaians and stuff where those players were from started supporting the team. And then like Thierry Henry was, one of the biggest, one of the first kind of Black global superstars, obviously like after Pele and stuff. So he was the first one for African Americans that kind of made it into our perspective. But when we released the video, some people in the comments were telling me the story about this one Arsenal hooligan, and he was maybe in the 60s. And he was a Black dude that his family was from Jamaica. Okay. And he was part of one of these emerging hooligan clans. Okay. And it was an all-white clan, but he was just, he's one of these dudes that, kind of walked to the beat of his own drum.
Got it.
But he was still Black.
Did he have like a racist nickname or anything? They didn't call him
the
something.
Bear.
Okay.
But
a little nervous there.
Yeah. So he was just really into the team. He was really into it, and he was hanging out with people that you would otherwise that were probably pretty racist.
Got it.
In one way or another. But he was down, and they would go fight people and do the whole thing. And at this time, a lot of the far right groups were trying to infiltrate these soccer hooligans because, you know, they're organized. If you infiltrate them, you have basically a structure of people that you can mobilize for anything else.
Sure.
And, you know, so when these skinheads were trying to infiltrate this group of hooligans that this one black guy was a part of, he essentially, by all accounts, fought them off himself. And also because I would, you know, what you read is that this group of hooligans was pretty much geared up to kind of go the direction of what these alt-right folks were doing.
And the bear was like, nah, yeah.
Well, and they supported him.
That's cool.
And so they kind of were just like, look, you know, this is our dude. He's been part of our group and he's a big, you know, supporter of the club and a big part of our history. So they just turned their backs on them, you know. So there's some cool stories about like soccer hooligans and some black folks that have, you know, done important things because, you know, that could have went a whole other direction.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that because this book, as much as Foer tries to make soccer sound really, you know, idealistic, there's some stuff in this book that I found to be, I think problematic is a lovely, kind way of putting it. And there was some stuff that I was pretty off put by. There is a team in England, Tottenham, and their nickname is the Yids, from what I understand. I think it's maybe like a self-induced nickname. It's not there. That doesn't say that on their jerseys or anything.
Right.
But he talks a lot about this kind of anti-Jewish sentiment in England and how this team, the Tottenham Yids, short for Yiddish, kind of embraced this nickname as a way to fight back against Chelsea, which is at the time, and I think still now, is a team that's known to be pretty anti everybody not white, from my understanding. But specifically anti-Semitic. And the way that they kind of fought them off was through embracing being Jewish, even though they weren't actually Jewish. Like, there weren't Jewish people on the team, and they had chants. The former U.S. soccer coach, Jurgen Klinsmann, played for Tottenham, and I guess they had a chant that was like, you know, chim chimney, chim chimney, chim chim chiroo. Jurgen was German, but now he's a Jew.
Right.
And like crazy shit like that. And the book kind of is like, isn't that awesome that they were able to fight off this anti-Semitism by being themselves more anti-Semitic? And it just, I find that to be problematic, but also just really interesting that the defense for anti-Semitism in this book is just like, if you can't beat them, just be more offensive. And he talks about how Chelsea's talking shit to Tottenham, and then they are like, oh yeah, well, we're Jewish, and they round up a group of Jewish people and have them pull down their pants and show their circumcised penises. And like, he doesn't really fight it in this book. And that's kind of like my big problem with the book is like, he presents all these stories, but he has no take on it.
Or he doesn't place it where you think it belongs.
Well, he doesn't contextualize it as at all as saying like, he kind of says like, and isn't that clever?
Right.
And it's totally clever. Like, that's how you fight a bully, right? They say like, you're a nerd, and you're like, yeah, look at my pocket protector. Right. But also like, he doesn't address the bully.
Right.
You know, so I just wonder, have you, in being involved in soccer, like noticed this kind of like nationalistic or, you know, anti-Semitism, and I will get to the racism in the book later, but because y'all, it's there, you know, it's there. Have you noticed that or like sensed that at all in your, I know you've traveled to some countries and experienced soccer. Is that something that you've like ever felt uncomfortable by, you know, being part of these culturally inconsiderate moments?
So a few things here to kind of like unpack from my perspective, which is like, one, British people are really sarcastic, and a lot of their chants and their cheers, you know, like if you ever watch a game, if someone takes like a shot from like outside that like he would never make, you know, everyone goes, oh, you know, so there's a level of sarcasm in there, and I'm not justifying it.
No,
I'm more just kind of talking
Contextualizing.
about where some of this stuff comes from. And one thing that's been really cool about Black Arrow, our perspective on the sport is we look at Black people and Black culture and some of the things that are happening. And I didn't realize until, I really got into this that we have the power of taking out the competitiveness that happens in soccer. And when you do that, it opens up, one, a better world, and two, it opens you up to being more objective and to, a lot of things that you might not otherwise be interested in, right?
Sure.
Like if all you care about is Arsenal, then you're not going to learn much about what's happening in Italy or Colombia. So, to the kind of current state of hooliganism is like, one, in England, like you can't even wear jerseys you can't even wear your own team jerseys. Like they have a dress code, like how, they made Black people, you had to used to, in Oakland, you had to like wear a button up just to get into the club type of thing. So they have that now.
Wait, so like if you're going to an Arsenal game, you can't wear an Arsenal jersey? That's crazy.
Yeah. And you definitely can't wear
the other team's jersey.
So
wow.
They've really attempted to clean it up. So a lot of it still happens, for sure. One thing that's really interesting, and again, I don't want to sound the same way that you're saying that this author is, but the supporters in soccer often feel like the team is bigger than the players.
Sure.
Whereas here in the United States, like LeBron is bigger than the Cavs.
Sure.
Steph is bigger than the Warriors.
Sure.
Even, maybe, the Yankees and some of these things, but earlier this year, one of my favorite players, Lukaku, who's a really big, like Black dude. He's 6'5". He looks like LeBron. Okay. So if anyone ever says, how come there's no LeBron playing football or soccer? There is. And he plays for Manchester United. It's very like traditional, organization with some pretty crazy fans. And they were, the fans started singing this song about the size of his penis.
Oh.
And it, it's like some slick Mandingo type of stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, he came out, after just them singing this song, and it's not the whole stadium, right? It's a group of, folks. And he came out and, was like, hey, thank you guys. Like, I'm glad that you, are, feel like you want to sing a song about my penis, but like, it's not appropriate. And, historically and culturally, you need to chill.
Right.
And so the next game, the fans came out and they sang, we're Manchester United. We can sing whatever song we want, which is what's crazy about that is not just that they did it, but you have a group of fans. He's one of the best players on their team.
Sure.
And so it's just a different beast when you're looking at soccer in the United States. Like, you're not going to sing that about Clay or Draymond. No. You love those players. Right. And so these supporter groups have a belief and an understanding in their minds that they are just as important to the club as even the players, and if not more important.
Sure. The author of the book kind of touches on that, about this like idea of like, nationalism and these, a lot of the fans being these, I mean, he talks about how years ago there were really few women who would go to games at all, and that, teams like Barcelona have the most women because they kind of have a different culture than some of the other more well-known European teams. But it sounds kind of like that idea of like, you're not going to tell us what to do, or, you're not in charge of us, like we're important too, comes from this same thing that we have been seeing in America since the 2016 election, which is this like white male, no, we're not going to be left behind, or this, and in the globalization and in the changing world, like this is our tradition and no one's going to kind of separate us from this.
Right.
And that stuff to me is dangerous, right? Like that's what leads to that kind of thinking is what leads to a Brexit or a Trump or
Right.
whatever that is. And, you know, whether or not those feelings are based in fact, people obviously have those feelings.
Right.
And I just, when I read this book, and I think this book was written in 2016 or 2006, like, you know, I wish that Foer had dove in a little deeper and kind of talked about it a little more, just because I feel like that was a time, you know, before we were really thinking about this, and he had the foresight to kind of see the quote unquote left behindness, but he doesn't really challenge it. And that's, I think, what's hard for me now, looking back 12 years from when this book was published. And I think, like, you know, he was on to something and was a little bit frightened maybe of what he was seeing, and was afraid to, like, ruffle feathers in his book about how great soccer is. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. He definitely is, you know, ingratiating himself to the soccer community. I think even to take it a little bit further back, just for some context, which is like some of these teams, you know, we think of, because of in America, everything is new, right?
Right.
A lot of these teams came from literally like labor movements. They were factories that had a club team that then evolved into a professional team. They were churches that had teams and then, you know, evolved into being a professional team. So soccer goes so far back that a lot of these, you know, these things that you're seeing are truly ingrained in the identity of these teams, because they came out of that, and people that are new to the sport might not see it because these teams have washed a lot of that out. And so, you know, I think that's just one thing to keep in mind. Again, not to justify it, because yes, it's worrisome and it's problematic and it's not all good.
Right.
It's just a matter of, like, for us to, you know, academically kind of understand where that comes from.
Sure. Another thing that Foer kind of talks about in the same line is about, there's a few instances where things occur, specifically in Ukraine. They have an African player, and the Ukrainian team is mostly people from Ukraine. There's a handful of people who are, at this time, are Serbian, and they have a Serbian coach, and then they have these two African players. And Foer is interacting with the African player, and some journalists come up to him and they see that he's talking to him. And then when he walks away, they say in English, like, monkey.
Right.
And then the other journalist says banana. And then, so here's what Foer has to say about that. And this part of the book, like, I mean, I'm a Black woman in America, and it's 2018, and there's a whole lot of shit going on. So I'm obviously reading this book differently. I read this book in 2010, and I don't remember any of it,
Right.
which is to say that at the time I clearly didn't think it was a big deal, because this book, I literally, like, I rated it on Goodreads. I had no idea I even read it. But so here's what he says. First of all, he calls that interaction a racialist and not a racist interaction, which to me is like, okay. And we'll talk about that in a second. But he says that he's talking about, like, the context of this racism in these parts of Europe. And he says, this is a little paragraph. It's a little long, but I'm going to read it because I think it's important. And it was a really, like, a moment for me. He says, yet their hatred doesn't betray isolation, but the opposite. There's a strange uniformity in the vocabulary European soccer fans use to hate Black people. The same primate insults get hurled. Although they've gotten better over time, the English and Italians developed the tradition of making ape noises when Black players touch the ball. The Poles toss bananas on the field. This consistency owes nothing to television, which rarely shows these finer points of fan behavior, nor are these insults considered polite to discuss in public. This trope has simply become a continent-wide folk tradition, transmitted via the stadium from fan to fan, from father to son. So essentially what he's saying is, this isn't something that people are learning and seeing and thinking, oh, this is so funny, I want to do it. It's something that they're being taught person to person. And so for me, I'm like, that's clearly racism. Like, that's not an accident. That's something that these people are saying no matter how shitty it is in Ukraine or Italy or London or whatever, we're still better than these monkeys, or like we can still treat these people who also are millionaires making tons of money.
Right.
We still feel like that we are better than them simply because they're Black. Right. Like, and I just think it's so interesting that that's something that's culturally supported by Black fans, right? Like, or by any fans, like people who are quote unquote liberal. Like, this is happening it's not just happening like in the outskirts of Italy, it's happening in Rome. Like, it's happening. And I just find that to be shocking, but also really more so I'm shocked by how casually it's brought up in the book.
Right. It's a huge issue. I mean, every league is trying to figure out how to deal with it.
Right.
There's anti-racism campaigns, there's videos, there's nonprofits. One of the biggest one is called Kick Out. They basically, go after anybody and anyone who is, being racist or supporting racism.
Mm-hmm.
I heard an interview one time with one of the more famous players, and one of the broadcasters, was like, so what do you think that we should do, about the racism? And like, in my mind, that's just crazy, because it's like when you're asking the person who's being,
right,
sure, discriminated against,
sure,
and this guy has to actually play in the game and try to win. And you know what I mean? It's
right,
like, it's not necessarily his job to combat, the racism. So a few things that I would touch on. For one, this brings up the power of like what I see in Black Arrow, which is being able to unify Black folks off the field.
Right.
And which gives us a voice, a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm.
It gives us almost a union of right, people that can say, we're here. Right.
And it's like kind of like a Black soccer lobby almost. Like, exactly, you got to pay attention to us.
Exactly. So, there's obviously a lot of Black players, but the reason I say that, and we've done these what we call MLS takeovers, where we get 60 seats all in the same section, 100 mm-hmm, seats in the same section, is that if there was 3,000 Black folks in that stadium, you wouldn't be.
You're not doing that.
You're not doing that, right? So
they're not doing that at basketball games,
right?
They're but also doing there's a different relationship between fans and players, as you were saying.
Right. But like, in a sense, those players are out on an island, which mm-hmm, is even more scary mm-hmm, for them, because if someone does that to you in an NBA game, you're, everybody in the stadium's on your side, the team's on your side, the league's right, on your side, and it's very clear. So that's one reason why I was, very motivated to start this brand. Another piece of context to, what you're saying, though, which I found really interesting, which is understanding the more I study the African diaspora, mm-hmm, the more, one, I realize that African Americans, really have created something special and unique. Mm-hmm. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, sure, these are people that have studied all around the world. And, our experience here in the United States was terrible. Mm-hmm. And it was terrible in other places too. Mm-hmm. But the way that we fought against that, and the way that we were able to overcome, often through like love and education and so, some of the things like other countries, they're just like, let's go get the guns and we're going to have a right, shootout. Right. So, learning some of this stuff, and I'll kind of get to the point, but learning some of this stuff, really helped me understand how special African Americans are. Not any more special than anybody else, but, in London, it's a different perspective on race. The majority of Black people that are in London are first generation immigrants, second generation immigrants from, the Commonwealth. Okay. And they're happy to be there. Sure. They're educated. They are there. They're not all educated, but some of them, their families have moved there for a better life. Sure. And it's not to say that there's not very progressive and revolutionary Black folks in England and London, but there is this sentiment that like, hey man, like we don't want to kick up any dust.
Well, it's just a different relationship to ownership of the country.
Exactly.
Like if you come to a country, you might experience discrimination, but if you feel like your ancestors built the country, which is how most Black Americans feel,
right?
You know, and then my understanding is that there's also a lot of Black folks in England who are similar to African Americans in the sense that their families came as slaves as well. So but it's kind of like there's two different,
right?
You know, and in America, we don't really distinguish. If you have Black or brown skin and you come to America, you're basically just an African American, even if you came last week from Rwanda. Like, You're not an African, you're an African American because you look Black.
Right.
So there's kind of like an all-encompassing
struggle. And I also just say that to say that like these guys often have their hands tied because
the players.
Yeah. In a way that like here we don't, because if you are from the Congo and you're playing soccer in Italy, it's like, where's your, where's your support? Where's your stance? And so, it's definitely like a big problem. I would say that it's getting better. It's getting worse. It's going more underground.
Right.
And I relate it to the Starbucks situation.
Sure.
Like, is that Starbucks' fault or this
is where the employee called the police on the two Black guys who hadn't ordered anything?
Yeah. Like, I don't really necessarily blame Starbucks for that. I think that was a real life thing that was happening.
Sure.
And, I do believe that soccer for a long time turned a blind eye as an industry to some of this stuff. Some of it is also just, people being people, and it's not necessarily specific to soccer.
Right. I don't want to spend the whole time talking about this, even though I obviously want to spend the whole time talking about this because it's all I ever want to talk about. But just really quickly, I just want to button this up by just talking about the difference between racism and racialism, just because I brought that up. And I want to make sure that if you don't understand, because I really didn't understand, I did a lot of Googling and messaging Sarah, who was our guest a few weeks ago, who's getting her PhD in this stuff. I was like, Sarah, I don't get it. Help me. And here's what Merriam-Webster says. So racialism is a theory that race determines human traits and capacities. So it's just a theory that race determines who you are and what you are. Whereas racism is a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. So basically the difference is that racialism is just saying you're Black, you're different, you're Asian, you're different.
Right.
Whether or not we agree with that to be true scientifically is a whole different conversation, but that's racialism. And then racism is you're Black, you're different, and lesser than. And so my big qualm with the whole thing is just like, I felt that Foer was a little cowardly in saying that throwing bananas and calling someone a monkey was racialist when that's clearly racist as fuck. Like, I don't think that you can justify that and say that it's just, oh, we're different. Right. And I just happen to know that you throw bananas at Black people. Like, Right. And whether or not, it's culturally accepted in the soccer community or not, for me, as someone who talks about books, to me, that's not a great look for an author who's a journalist. Like, to me, that says that he's got another agenda. Right. And, he does, I think. I think that's pretty clear throughout the book, but I just kind of wanted to tie that little section up. And
that's where actually I'm glad you did that, because I'm reminded of the point that I was trying to get to. It's like when you're Black and you're in China, they don't have a history of like big communities of Black people there. Mm-hmm. And so they're insensitive. If they're insensitive or they do certain things, someone like him would suggest that they're just kind of like, they don't get it. They don't understand. They're not necessarily being racist. Right. And I think that his point was more that, they don't really know anything about like Black people, and they don't have a reason. Right. But often they do. In Italy, they don't like Somalians because there's Somalian immigrants there. Right. And so a lot of their racism comes from their hate for immigrant communities. Right. So, I think that that's the point that he would try to make. And I would push back and say, well, I think you're going to have a hard time convincing me that in England, they don't have a relationship with Black folks. Like, I just think it's hard. But what do I know? Really quickly, just a quick little break.
Valentine's Day is upon us, and I've got love on the brain. Love for books, duh, of course. Hello. Did you forget what podcast you're listening to? I love bringing you all great reads, exclusive author interviews, and behind the scenes book gossip. But I can only do that with your support over on Patreon and Substack. Our Stacks Patreon community, also known as the Stacks Pack, is where you can go for book club meetups, a private, very active Discord, and a year-long mega reading challenge to help you achieve all your reading goals. Plus, you also get that monthly bonus episode. Now, over on the Substack, you can subscribe to my newsletter, Unstacked, where I keep the book conversations going. I also give you a healthy dose of sports and pop culture, definitely some hot takes happening over there. And again, that bonus episode. If you don't have a few dollars to spare, don't worry. There are free options on the Substack and the Patreon to get you a little extra Stacks magic. Making this podcast is a total team effort, and by supporting my Patreon and my Substack, you allow me to support my amazing team that makes the show possible every single week. So if you or your friends are looking to meet other book lovers and support this indie podcast, come hang out with me on Patreon, Substack, or both. I would love to have you. And since we're talking about love, you can gift subscriptions to the Patreon and the Substack for that special reader in your life. For the Stacks Pack, head to patreon.com/thestacks. And for the newsletter, head to tracythomas.substack.com. And also, there are links to both in the show notes. Okay, see you in the Stacks. So here's the last little bit I want to talk about. I just kind of want to tie this book into the United States, which is how Foer ends the book. He a little bit talks about soccer in America as being more of a rich, white, suburban thing, whereas in other places in the world, it is a more working class of the people sport. And I think that's really interesting to think about as maybe a reason why soccer hasn't caught on as much in America. Definitely. But then I also think about all the people that I know who watch soccer in America, and they're all Black guys, which is super interesting to me. And I think it has to do with my brother is a huge soccer fan, and he traveled to Costa Rica, and that's kind of what instigated his interest in soccer. So I wonder if being around people who are passionate about it is more what it is. But I don't know if you've talk about your kind of experience with soccer in the States.
Yeah. A lot of bougie Black folks,
Brady included.
We like soccer. It's a way of showing, you're well traveled, you're into something different, just like someone might play some classical music or something. It's a way to show culture
and bougie white people
and bougie white people,
bougie people.
But for sure, I mean the idea that soccer is a middle class white sport in America traditionally is 100% true.
Right. Well, that's who plays it.
That's who plays it, and that's where the perspective of what we think of as soccer, and this is one thing that we are really doing with our brand, is we're trying to show people how cool soccer is. But here in America, a lot of people, when you see soccer, you think of empty soccer fields, orange slices and Capri Suns and, pizza parties and,
my fave.
Actually a lot of Black kids play soccer when they're younger, but they stop for both economical reasons and because they just don't think it's that cool.
Right.
And they don't see an end game in it.
Sure.
They don't see the people that they look up to playing it. So that doesn't really isn't reflective of the sport globally, but that's kind of cool of what's happening in Atlanta because they're getting 70,000 people out to a game.
Wow.
If you're a young kid and you're growing up in Atlanta and you're turning on the television, you're seeing 70,000 people at a soccer game, you have a different perspective of it. You and I grew up in Oakland. We never saw more than 10 people at a soccer game. Right. So, and then there's also some other stuff that he goes into, which is there was some, kind of Cold War sentiment, anti-European, we have to play football. We have to be tough. It's American. I'm a big Jim Rome fan, and he talks
about him a bunch in the book.
Yeah, he always kind of talks bad about soccer, and that we've kind of trained ourselves that soccer is kind of a sissy sport.
Sure.
Is that, do people still use that word?
I mean, I don't know. You're using it. So yes, so at least one person does.
All right. If that word is no longer politically correct at any time the next year,
sure.
I'm out.
Okay. We're not trying to be offensive. Don't dredge this up when Aaron runs for office. Relax. Yeah, I definitely think that's true. One of the things that we do here on the Stacks, I don't know if you know this, but we talk about the title of books, and we'll just do this quick. Here, the title of the book is How Soccer Explains the World, An Unlikely Theory of Globalization. And I would challenge that perhaps that the title of this book should be something a little bit more closely to like how soccer is a mirror for other things I've seen in the world. Because I don't really feel like Foer explains the world through soccer. I think more so he takes things that he's seen in the world and says, look, this happens in soccer too. But I think, How Soccer Explains the World is a much grabbier title. So I respect the title because it's really a good one. I just don't know if it's accurate.
It's really long.
It's also a long title. Well, The Unlikely Theory of Globalization is the subtitle. So just it's not all in one line.
Yeah.
It is long. I think like overall the book is good. I just wish that it was a little more analytical and a little. I wish he pushed back a little bit more.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I read this book a long time ago, and talking to you about it, I think that like what you're identifying is that like he uses soccer as a certain lens to explain racist things and really kind of like bad things that are happening in the world. And by doing that, you're kind of like justifying it.
Yeah,
almost.
He kind of like puts rose-colored glasses on some of it.
Yeah, which is like, I mean, that's a very popular thing to do, right? Like we all love gangster movies,
sure. Well,
Scarface.
Speak for yourself, but yeah, people do like those.
Yeah, and this, The Sopranos, So I think that he's doing that to kind of attract people to, rooting for.
He's trying to sexy it up a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fine. If you want to read a book that I personally think is a really great look at sports in the world and maybe a little bit more analytical of some of the stuff that goes on, I highly recommend any book by Dave Zirin, but I also particularly love Welcome to the Terror Dome. It's one of my favorite books about sports. I'm just going to throw that out there, people.
Okay, I'm going to check it out. I haven't read it yet.
Do you have anything else you want to add about soccer and the world and this book or anything?
No, I mean, I think that like I said, I think in the last episode, what's really interesting about this book and what I would suggest people do if they're not into soccer is find ways to find themselves in soccer. If you're a woman, there's the U.S. women's national team is amazing and filled with a lot of Black women. If you are of African descent, if you are from Colombia, Mexico, wherever. So I feel like what I love about soccer and what I think that this book kind of floats out there is that you can find a lot of yourself, a lot of your history, a lot of your culture in the sport.
Right.
And if you connect to it on that, and then you start seeing the way that it plays itself out on the field, even to the different styles of play and stuff like that. Like one thing I love about soccer is I turn on the games in the morning and I'm watching games in Germany, England, Spain, United States, and I'm hearing all these sounds from all these fans. So it's a really a cool way to like travel, in your mind mentally. And I think that's kind of what to the people, when I started this, I thought that I was going to be trying to talk more people into the sport. I don't really do that anymore. But if you're needing a convincing, as to why soccer is so big, because I think that people in America, we think that we're right to not really like soccer.
Sure.
When it's the bigger sport in the world, you kind of have to think maybe we're wrong. Right.
Well, and that there's an entry point for anyone into soccer, and especially right now, the World Cup is going on when you're listening to this. So if you haven't tuned in yet, like I think Aaron and myself would challenge you, pick a team. Just start rooting. Like it's group play right now. So you still have time to pick a team, maybe pick a team that's already qualified to the elimination round so you got something to watch for. But, I love the World Cup. I think it's fun to root for people, representing their country, just like the Olympics.
How would you feel if Russia won the World Cup?
it's in Russia, so I'd probably think it was like rigged, right? It would be so juicy, you know? I'd think that like our president was in on it. I think it was a whole thing. I'm rooting for Colombia because I was there and I got to watch them play France and win, and Australia when I was there, and they were so into it and I was out in the street. So I'm like Team Colombia. So hopefully at this point they're making it to the next round. I don't know. We'll see. But that's it from us today. Thank you guys so much for listening. I will be back next week with my guest, Ross Asdorian. He's an author of a brand new book called Broken Banana. And he's hilarious.
Whoa, banana.
It's about when he broke his penis.
Okay.
Broken Banana. Okay, Aaron, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all in the stacks.
All right.
That does it for us this week on the Stacks. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Aaron Dolores, for being our guest. Please make sure that wherever you're listening to this show, you are subscribed. And if you have a second, please rate and review the show. We really appreciate it. Our Patreon page is up. It's live. You can contribute to the show. You can help us keep the lights on over here. You also get exclusive awesome perks, so check that out. Special thanks to Sarah Fong. Our graphic designer is Robin McCrite. Our theme music comes from Tagirigis, and this show was created and produced by me, Tracy Thomas.